upstate New York. We suck it up.
If you hadn't seen that clip before, you can find it on YouTube, TikTok, pretty much anywhere and everywhere. And it's called the ICEY-TEK Deer Blind Dad Jokes. And just PSA warning, don't be taking a drink of anything while you're watching it because it'll get messy. The guy in the middle, his name is Patrick Mudge, and he is the CEO of ICEY-TEK USA. Did I get the right Mudge?
You got it all right.
All right. Thanks for joining us today on Texas Fully Loaded. We've been introduced to your organization. Of course, this is another Walt thing. Walt knows everybody, apparently. And we wanted to bring you on and learn more about the actual organization, what you're about, who you are, where you came from, and also what in the world gave you the idea for the Deer Blind Dad Jokes. But yeah, so let's hear it.
So I came from my mom. No, I'm kidding. No, I was born in Ohio, actually. Go Buckeyes. Anywho, grew up in rural Ohio, but worked in the city. So I was one of those kids that grew up kind of in the ghettos, but also in a cornfield. So I was very confused at a young age. But grew up, went on, was actually going to school to be a pilot. So I was at Embry-Riddle working on being an airline pilot until 9/11. And my internship and everything was pretty much canceled. So I had to figure out what I was going to do, and what better way than just when you're young and dumb to get even. So I joined the military, following my grandfather, great uncle, and great grandfather and all them footsteps. Everybody was Navy. So I went ahead and joined. Was absolutely miserable. I hated the Navy, at least the first 3-4 months. And finally, one day I was at a command in Hawaii and the NSA, and they'd said to us, hey, we've got a substantial threat going on. We're looking for volunteers to do some more combat arms stuff. And of course, my hand went up because I was not going to spend the next 4 to 8 years sitting behind a computer. So anyways, had a great career, worked in the counterintelligence kind of naval security force realm, if you will, working DURSUP with some of the team guys, doing some surveillance work with the NSA and their security group, which was an absolute mess at the time, but I won't get into that. Was a DoD contractor after I got out, worked for the 3-letter alphabet agencies, and had a great career up until 2011. And then I was just burned out, bored. They had cut the defense budget immensely in 2011 during the BRAC. So I was looking for something to do. And I told my wife at the time, I said, I think I just want to mow lawns instead of having a top secret clearance. And knowing the things I know, I'd rather just go mow lawns and plow snow. That sounded like a great idea, which was great. I actually did really well. I did it for about 1.5 years until a drunk driver actually hit my truck, T-boned me at a stoplight. And that was, I learned my first lesson in business continuity. Make sure you got a backup plan and a second vehicle. So I got into the consulting space. I actually moved around quite a bit. I'm settled in Texas, which was truthfully the biggest thing that's to save my life, was being around people that get it. They understand life. They look out for each other. They really can take care of themselves and their neighbors. And I fell in love with it. So I lived there for a few years when I discovered ICEY-TEK. So I was heading up to, well, let me not get ahead of myself. So in 2011, one of my best friends, Michael Strange, he had gone on from Team 1 and Team 2 to DEVGRU, which is Naval Special Warfare Development Group, aka SEAL Team 6. He was killed with 30 others in Extortion 1-7 on August 5th, 2011, the very infamous Extortion 1-7 mission over Wardak Province. His father, some people had a love-hate relationship with him. I thought very highly of him for other things. And he started the first foundation for Gold Star Parents. Wow. So here I am, wallowing in my depression, coping with things the way young men typically do, is suck it up, have a drink, you'll be fine. Oh, and by the way, I don't drink these. They're just for show. So we'll put those out there. Jerry knows the backstory. But anywho, I was consulting, and we went up to Philadelphia to meet with Charlie for the first time in 7 years or 6 years. This was 2017, and I was able to face him and say I'm sorry. You know, I had so much guilt over it, but more importantly, Thomas Duran Drago, he's the kind of the notorious SEAL now, right? He wrote his book about his story growing up in Poland and being in a gulag and fighting against socialism. He invited me down to Cincinnati to see the new headquarters for the Navy SEALs Fund. So we went down in through passing. I met a family that owned this company. It was actually dating their daughter. no secret. But anyways, that didn't work out. But her stepdad owned the company. He was struggling with it, had a lot of debt, and it was a great product. I opened the box. I'll never forget the first day I opened the box, and I went, wow, that looks like a cooler I'm very familiar with called Yeti. And he said, well, that's because it was. He goes, they white labeled. And if you don't know what white label means, that means you buy a product from somebody else, put your sticker on it, and call it yours. So they did that for 3 years. And that's how Yeti got started from 2006 to 2009. You go and Google, it was the Yeti Roughneck. So, of course, there's so much false information out there. Google says they invented the cooler and all, just blah, blah, blah. But the true story was the cooler was invented from 2 Australians, Vlad Golar and his brother, and they rotational molded a first cooler in Thailand in 1987. Hit the market in 1988, came to the U.S. in 98. Yeti started in 2006. And I took over the company officially in 2019 when I sweat equity and bought the company in April of 2019. So we brought it back. We built the website. We built, obviously, social media. I'm sure you're going to get into that. But this was, I didn't grow up wanting to be a cooler salesman. I wanted to help people, and I couldn't find the right way to do it, right? So when you're in the business of hurting people to help people, there's certain problems that come with that. Then I got in the industry in the space of helping people. I thought, well, I could be a firefighter, paramedic, EMT, and do all that. No, that don't work either. So had to find something that works. So I thought, well, we could use this to bring back a quality product these are handmade coolers. They're not made in a big machine and cranked out like numbers. I mean, there's many man hours that go into these coolers.
I'm not familiar with that. I mean, I've seen the where they put the pressure through the molds and all that kind of good stuff, extruding whatever, but they're handmade.
Yep. So I really wish I had one sitting right here so I could show you. We'll have to get a little image for you. But anyways, the cooler, the outside shell is made in a rotational mold. The inside piece where you put your drinks or your food, that's a separate piece, and they're made in a rotational mold. Then they take those 2 shells, they take the outside shell and put it in a steel jig. They spray the insulation in, drop the inside lining in, and then it's all extrusion, hand weld, and sanding all the way around, from the hinges to the latches to the seal of the cooler to the cups for the tie downs, the drain plugs. There's anywhere from 30 to 40 man hours that go into a cooler. Now people think, well, those are very expensive to make. Yes, they are. But because the rotational mold cooler was started and invented in Thailand, we're not necessarily taking jobs away from anybody. They started this long before we did. But the key is most people don't know, well, some people do, but most people don't realize that Thailand is a U.S. ally, even though they're a monarchy. And we've been in trade and commerce with Thailand, and naval forces have been there. Well, not just Navy, but I know Navy for many, many years. But the big takeaway from this is, and I'm not going to name specific names of NGOs on this podcast or any podcast for security reasons, but we work with certain NGOs and the Thai government to intercept women who are being trafficked. And if you're not familiar with what goes on in Eastern Asia, there is an abundance of terrorism and war, and a lot of that comes from Laos and Cambodia and Burma, which is Myanmar. And those women are sold and trafficked through Thailand into China. So intercepting them and being able to build trust, getting them away from the smugglers, getting them jobs, getting them health care, showing them that they're safe and they can trust, and getting them that stepping stone. So the kids immediately get enrolled into school. The mother and the child get health care. Very rare is there a significant other in that involvement, but if there is, they're very welcome. They're brought in too. So there's a transition phase. They learn a trait. They learn the language. They learn Thai. They learn English. The school's amazing. I mean, they just built a brand new soccer field, which they call football over there. It's AstroTurf with their version of Thai Starbucks, and it's absolutely the best iced coffee you'll ever have. It's phenomenal. But so there's a big philanthropic part in Eastern Asia that keeps terrorism at bay. It keeps the trafficking at bay. And the terrorism over through Indonesia and Eastern Asia is the Abu Saif. So we deal with that at its home front, keeping it over there. While here we use our revenues and network to raise money for these Gold Star families so that Charlie, Michael Strange's father, can just call. The family's called. He says, hey, we're having this retreat weekend, such and such date. Pack your bags. A car will come pick you up, take you to the airport. You're going to fly in. He's got Philly Police Department rolls out the red carpet. They give an escort for these parents. They take them to a nice conference center at a hotel. And it's a very gradual step process. And I've been blessed to be able to watch it. I didn't want to watch it, but I really wanted to understand how it worked while still respecting the privacy of the parents. And they come in, everybody's all timid. They don't know what to expect. They've been dealing with the home life. Maybe the neighbors don't talk to them much anymore, and they don't know what's going on and what's wrong. So we help explain to them it's just perception. They don't want to say the wrong thing. They don't know how to relate, and they don't want to upset you. They love you. Helping them get their perception back. And then you watch through the transition phase as it gets to the end, and they write a letter to their son or daughter that was KIA, and they read it to them, and that's kind of the closure. But when they all leave, you see this fraternity of just parents that have their own private network that get it. They're smiling, they're laughing. I've seen mothers cry and say, I've never smiled and danced in years because of losing my son or daughter. And I still today get calls from these parents. And, whether it's ego or whatever, it makes me feel good that I can help in that way. So we have done everything we can to grow this company, which I hire veterans, as we talked. Will's a veteran as well. I've got a former SWAT guy. But to grow it and help more of these folks is really what we stand for. Now, that's not the easy way, but it's the right way. So
not only that, but you also is probably more fulfilling than shoveling snow and mowing lawns, right?
Some days I wouldn't mind shoveling the snow if I absolutely had to.
So I'm putting up a list of different organizations that you give time, money, and effort to.
Yeah.
And the list, just goes on.
And I intimately can tell you people from every one of these organizations. We talk all the time, helping them out wherever we can. Man, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. No, that is just amazing. There's so many organizations out there that are just purely focused on the bottom dollar, maximizing revenues and margins and profits for the stakeholders and what have you. But you're out there with a positive force, with a positive message. We've got some things in the works. I know that by talking to Walt, he had an idea, or maybe you had the idea about it'd be nice to get one of these in the hands of all those that are on the front line on the Texas border, working out there to try to stem the tide, as you can say, because it's people don't know that Texas National Guard, DPS, and Border Patrol, they don't get things in their budget such as sanitary wipes, bottled water. It's ridiculous, and especially ice chests that they need, and when it's 120 degrees down in Eagle Pass, right, during the Texas summer. One of the things that I read about your coolers is that you can keep ice in there for a week in some situations, right?
And that's the smaller sizes. So and we do make up to 1,100 quarts that hold ice for months, and that's really what's used in emergency management, federal government, seafood logistics. Believe it or not, they can reduce dead loss. But no, where credit's due, it was Walt suggested it to me. Of course, I thought it was a great idea. I was very disappointed to find out how bad the funding is for our agents and DPS and state troopers down there. And most public don't realize that agents it's not like a military base where they're all congested together. They're spread out, sometimes teams of two by themselves for hours on end. And if they intervene with a convoy, they could be there for a very, very long time. And we can't get these guys hydrated. These guys and gals can't get access to coolers with bottled water.
That's right.
insane. That's absolutely
It
insane.
is.
How do you expect anybody to do their job? California OSHA requires a gallon of chilled water per employee per 8-hour shift. Why are we not even giving border agents? It's mind blowing. So when Walt brought that up, absolutely said yes. We will supply all the coolers. We work together, so we don't go bankrupt doing it, but we're going to make sure that we can get the coolers in the hands of everybody. And then if there's money left over, we're going to make sure it gets in the hands of the right people, and we help the folks that we stand for. So, it's hard for us to raise investment capital because we spend our profits helping others. Investors don't love that, but maybe someday there will be one.
Well, I tell you what, Patrick, I greatly appreciate what you've done, what you are doing, and what you plan to do. It's truly amazing and such a strong force for positive in the world. And I know that there are so many proud brothers of yours that are watching from somewhere else. And, they got a big smile on their face watching you do all the good that you are. And I greatly appreciate you taking the time to come on the show. We're definitely going to be promoting your product. The website has been scrolling across the bottom. It's ICEY-TEK.com, ICEY-TEK. And once again, thank you so much. And we look forward to having you back on.
No, it's my pleasure. Thank you so much, Jack.
You bet.